It's fairly easy. You can't mess this stuff up too much. Too much. All right, so back here at the LilyPad, I put a soft pine floor in, and the reason I did that is these buildings are very old, and they really didn't use a whole lot of oak back in the day. They used a lot more softer woods because it was easier to cut. They did most of the cutting by hand or horse. So I put a wide plank pine floor in here, and I want it to look like an old floor. Well, not like rotted out old floor, but look like it's been here for quite a while. And one of the things I want to do is I'm just going to knock off, to give you an idea, I put what they call cabin grade or utility grade in. And the reason is, if you look right here, you'll see there's kind of holes in it. None of the joints actually fit up perfectly. That's actually by design. I want it to look like it was hand cut. It was, put down 100 years ago or so. So with that being said, I'm not wanting to remove all of the marks and distressed and cut marks and gouges that are in the floor. However, I do need to take off like the basic dirt, you know what I mean? When you walk on the floor, you'll see there's little footprints. I don't know if you can really see this in the camera, let's see. You can see some dark spots where it's been walked on, it's kind of dirty, like really, really dirty. We want to knock that off. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to use this sander. This is just an orbital sander that I rented at Home Depot. Not overcomplicated, very simple to use. And in doing so, we're actually going to use an 80 grit sandpaper. Hold on, let me show you. So we're going to use this. It's really like an 80 grit screen is what I call it because you can see through it. But this is a sandpaper, and this is the reason the holes are in it, or it's a screen, is actually it doesn't clog up like sandpaper does. Now, you can't put this directly on the bottom of that sander. So what you do is you put a pad on there. This pad goes there, and then the mesh actually goes, or the screen goes underneath it against your floor. And yeah, let me show you how this works. So basically you just take that guy, you put that on the floor like that, then you're going to take this and actually put it right on top of it. And on the bottom of this sander, you'll actually notice there's little bitty like plastic teeth. And what those are going to do is actually, I don't think we need that little tag on her today, actually just goes on here like this, just kind of bites into it. But the easiest way to do this is take your sanding pad, put it down on the floor, put your buffing pad on top of it, and then the best way is to just kind of line this thing up on top and drop it down on it. And that's all there is to it. Now you have the sanding paper here. Now, a lot of people with this particular sander and even some of the other sanders that you can get, this is the orbital, it means it's just going to go in circles. They sell a belt sander, and that's really if you want to be more aggressive. Like I said, I'm just trying to remove the dirt. So this is more than perfect for what I need. The belt sanders are very aggressive, and be cautious because you will remove a lot of material if you try to use a belt sander. Typically, like this is an 80 grit sandpaper or screen. When you're starting out, when you're redoing floors really, and you use a belt sander, you're going to start with like a 36. And the lower the number, the more aggressive the material you're going to remove. So being an 80, it's going to just clean the floor basically. Now the other thing about that is when you're using this, as you go along, buy plenty of, sanding screens, because as you go along, if you don't see it moving material, removing material, take that, chuck it, and get a new one, put a new one on there. The whole point of this is to make the floor look good and prepped. Part of this floor already has one coat of polyurethane, and it just sucked it in. I mean, when you put it down, you can almost see it just drying on the floor. My goal is to completely screen this and then recoat it with at least I'm wanting to put 3, maybe 4 coats and see how that's actually going to work. But anyways, I got to get to work and it's time to start running this thing. Now, when you get it, the cord may not be connected, and as you can see, this is kind of a prong like that, and it's a little, you'll get a special cord, but if you look, you'll see there's one that has like a little L on it. Just look on the plug, and then what you're gonna do is just line it up like that, and then give it a turn. And that's gonna lock that plug in. Now, one of the other benefits of this cord that I really like is the fact that when you plug it in, because you don't know 100%, it lights up. And it lights up on both ends, so you know you have power to it. There's a couple other little tricks for you that's gonna make your life a little easier. One is, get your cord, unplug it, and stretch it all the way out. Just go ahead and get it out. Get all the kinks and all the, you know, twists and bends and everything out of it. And then plug it in pretty far away from where you're actually gonna be working. The other thing is pick a spot. You're gonna go across, I'm going across this thing. They always say you can kind of go with the length of it, whatever. I'm gonna go back and forth over top of this, but I'm gonna pick a spot, say these outlets right here. And so I'm only gonna go back this far, come forward, back this far, and do a kind of a pattern over top of it. Just like mowing a lawn, except for you're not gonna go in a square, you're just gonna go back and forth. Oh, let me show you how to use this handle real quick. Now, last but not least, if you pull the handles, you'll see it doesn't work. It has a little button right here. Push that button and pull the handle, and you'll see it start work. But also ask before, when you go rent the equipment, ask the man, how do you run this thing? What do I need to do? Don't be shy about it. Every piece of equipment has something different, and you never know. And it might be something simple like, man, this ain't working. Oh, I got to push the button. You know, just ask the guy, show me how this thing works before I rent it. But rent the equipment and, you know, just get started. It's fairly easy. You can't mess this stuff up too much. Too much. Last thing is the handle. This thing right here, tilt it down a little bit more. This thing right here, all you need to do is push it down like that and then wiggle this, and you'll feel that handle start to go. Now, how do you know where it's at? You want it about, I typically want it about where my waist is, because all I'm gonna do, I'm not trying to, if you try to manhandle this, you're just gonna waste your time, you're gonna wear yourself out. So typically what I do is go about waist height, and it might be a little tight to move around. Once you get it at waist height, then you're just gonna grab that handle back and pull up and tighten it. Push the button, pull the trigger, and then you're just gonna kind of follow it. Just let it lead you. And the best way to do is if you let it raise up, it'll go, you know, that way, and if you push down a little bit, it'll go that way. But be careful by doing that. You want to try to keep this thing as flat as you can on the floor. However, tilting it a little bit, and that's where that red pad comes in, will let it move itself. So here, just watch and you'll see. And that's all you want, just sudden, you know, no sudden real moves, just kind of let it go and take your time. To me, this is actually pretty relaxing. So, and I've got probably several hours, because I got about 3,000 square feet. Well, actually in this room, I've got about, I think I got 2,700 square feet of hardwood floor, not hardwood, but pine floor that I need to do. So, not to include these windows. That's some of the other reason I've got to sand it. Because it is, you know, cabin grain wood, you can see the blue marks. That's when it was actually coming off. They'd circled the flaws in it. And most of this has already been sanded once or screened, so it doesn't have those blue marks, but some of it still does, and I'll have to go over top of that and remove those blue marks. Anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and start doing this. It's gonna take me quite a few hours. I'm probably just going to time-lapse this thing, so Okay, so you ran it a little ways and you've got some of the floor done. You know, you can see I've basically got a line going across there. And you don't think it's taken off as much material as it once was. Well, it might be time to change up the screen. By the way, on the screen, it doesn't matter which way you put it. I typically just put it with a sticker up because that way I don't have the sticker rubbing on the floor. But these, if you want, you can take the sticker off. It comes off fairly easy. But yeah, just change it out. Easiest way, just lift it up, take off the screen, put your other one underneath it, and set it down on it, and you're good to go again. So, it's not a big deal. Like I said, buy plenty. The other tip here is buy a couple different screens. You know, you may want to try an 80. An 80 may not be what you want. Maybe you want to move more material. Well, if you do, you might have to step down to a 60. But I typically say get some sandpaper and hit a couple spots. Get an 80, a 60, whatever, and then scuff it up with it, using it, and then make a decision. And then when you go rent the machine, you know what sandpaper you need. So anyways, I got to get back to work. All right, so sometimes you're going to run into little spots like this that you just can't get the sander into. You see I still have the blue mark around it and I just can't get that sander in there. When that happens, the best thing to do is get your little orbital sander. This actually has a Velcro pad on the bottom of it, and this is 80 grit sandpaper or screen that you can pick up anywhere. This one happens to be battery operated, but it doesn't have to be. And then you can actually take this guy and actually get in there for what you need. And by doing that, then you're quickly done. And the biggest thing is that you can't get this big beast into everything. So get your little hand sander and have it with you. They're fairly inexpensive. Doesn't matter about the brand, but anyways, all right, I gotta get back. I'm only maybe a third of the way done. I am a little bit over halfway done sanding, and it's taken me a couple hours to get to this point. But look at this floor. If you can see it, I don't know if you can or not. Let me see if I can get back over here. Look how fresh and clean this floor looks right through here. That looks beautiful. Now, I still have from that sander all the way back, and then around the corners actually where the bathrooms are. So we'll get that sanded too, but man, that makes me happy. I mean, it's a big area. All right, let's get back after it. That's it, I'm done. 6 hours of sanding, and I have it completely sanded, including the little hallway. Now what's the next phase? Well, the next phase is to get the stuff together for polyurethane these floors. Actually, I have to vacuum this whole place because I got to get that dust out, or that dust will just be in the finish. And we do not want that. Next thing I got to do actually is take and blow this off, clean that bag out, and return it back to Home Depot. If you're going to return it, it needs to go back clean. That's all there is to it. And it doesn't take much. Here they just want you to blow it off and do that. By the way, I ended up using, I'm not even sure, let's count them real quick. I know there was a lot. When I say a lot, probably about 6, 7 different pads that I ended up using, or the 80 grit screens. So let's see. The only thing I do have left I got to sand is these windows. I do have to sand those, but rather than pay for another day with the rental fees, I think I'm going to just sand it with the hand sander. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I used 6 pads to sand this whole place. I think that's pretty good, because that is a lot of space to sand. All right, so the time has come. We've actually got everything completely sanded, and Tommy went ahead. I had some great help. Tommy went ahead and vacuumed everything. You don't want to sweep it because you're just going to push dirt in the cracks. You actually want to vacuum it out and get all the dirt out of the cracks and little holes and all that stuff. So now we're going to go ahead and start polyurethaning. The polyurethane I'm going to use is the Minwax, and I'm just going to use the super fast drying polyurethane. I want the high gloss because I want this to be as glossy as I can get. I want it to be over the top shiny. There you go. There it is. Now I buy it in these buckets right here, which are what, 2.5 gallons? 2.5 gallons. You can buy the 1 gallon jugs, but it's a little bit harder to work with. I prefer this. Now, I will say, when I first put down an unfinished floor, I will use the cheapest polyurethane I can get because all I want to do is seal it. Now they do make a sealer just for wood floors. You'd put it on, let it dry, and then do that. You can spend your money on that if you want to. I prefer just go ahead and roll a coat of cheap polyurethane on it and then finish it up with this guy. Now the other thing we're going to be doing is I want to talk to you about the roller. I'm going to be rolling it. Some people squeegee it. They make special tools for it. This is a standard roller. This is 9-inch roller. It will take me a lifetime in here. I'm actually going to use one that's bigger. It's 18-inch roller, and they're fairly inexpensive. This is I think it's a 1/2-inch nap or 3/8, and it says on the package will not shed. Try to find those if you can. You don't need to use this one. Go with this one. Okay. Now, because this roller is so wide, it doesn't sit down in a pan, and it doesn't sit down inside of a bucket very well. So what I am going to be doing is I bought a cheap utility box that my roller will fit into. And it has a good sealed lid, so I'm going to put 2 cans in this thing, and then I'm going to actually put it on a furniture dolly so that I can push it around where I need it to as I'm working. So anyways, I got to get started. Let me do this real quick. Oh, let me show you about this with the cans. Let me get this set up. So here's my setup, a cheap furniture dolly from Harbor Freight. I'm going to put my bucket on there. These paint cans are a little bit different. In other words, they have tabs on them. And what you'll do, let's see if I can show you this, is you'll actually take your pliers or a screwdriver or whatever you want to use. Screwdriver might have been a better idea for some of these. And you just pry them up. And you do that all the way around this can until a couple other things you need is a stir stick and a cheap paintbrush. And then you're just going to want to mix this up. Don't mix it in such a way that you're going to get air bubbles, and never shake it. If you shake it, you are going to set yourself up for a failure like crazy. Now before you put it in this bucket or this box, make sure you clean the box out. I've already vacuumed this box out, so it should be fine to go. I'm actually going to do that. Then we're just going to move you back over here. And all I'm going to do is try to pour this in here without making a mess. Let's see how that works for me. There you go, empty bucket. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other can, and then I'm gonna get it in there. Now by pouring it in there, I did create a little bit of air bubbles, so I will let this sit for a minute or two and actually settle the air bubbles. About one of the most important things when you start the polyurethane is, how am I gonna get out of here? You wanna work your way, it seems like it'd be obvious, but you won't believe how many times you get trapped, is you wanna work your way towards an exit. The other thing is, you always wanna make sure that, like I have 2 cans of polyurethane, but that may not be enough for this whole floor. And so I put my other polyurethane next door, my building next door. I also make sure that all my tools and anything that I need are headed towards that door or outside. Because once I'm out, or once I'm over in that area, I can't get back on this side. So make sure to have all your tools, anything that you want to do, and keep, you know, towards the exit. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to do the hallway, and then I'm going to knock this little area here out, and then I'm just going to kind of work my way all the way to the end of the room. I also go barefoot when I'm doing polyurethane, just because no matter how hard I try, I always get it on my feet, and when I get it on my feet, I ruin socks every time. Now, you could wear those, what do they call them, feet condoms or whatever, but I just wash my feet when I get home. Anyways, I gotta get started. So with this setup, you can see I just have it like this. I'm just gonna dip it down in. I don't care if it's drenched, like you can see it leaking, that's fine with me. I'm actually going to come over top and try to keep it to where my feet don't get soaked in it. And just try to work the edges. Now, you do have that paintbrush, and it is highly advised that as you do this, you can cut it in. Some people say cut it in as you go, or before you even do this, cut it in, but I think it's 6 in one, half a dozen another, you know? That's it, one full coat all the way through the building. I think it looks pretty good. We'll just let that dry. It should dry for about, actually it says 4 to 6 hours, but I'm gonna let it dry overnight since it's so late now. And then tomorrow I'll come in and do another coat. I'm hoping, like I said, 2 more coats on this floor, and it should be shiny. Now I need to go to the basement, cut off the breaker so it kills the lights. All right, we're back here. You can't see me. All right, we're back here at the LilyPad, day 2, and that's impressive. That's a beautiful floor. I mean, look at that thing. Now you'll notice that there's some spots that are a little shinier and other spots that got a little bit of dull into them. And that's what we were talking about. Multiple coats of polyurethane is going to be needed on this, but that's pretty. That's going to be a beautiful floor. Hey, let's get another coat on it. All right, so I hope you don't hear the fan too much, but I've got the fan actually going. You can see I got one fan blowing to the other fan, and that's going to be taking the fumes out the door. I've also got my trusty bucket ready on my little thing, and I've got a new roller on it because I'm not going to try to save rollers, just throw them away, don't even mess with it. And a cheap brush so I can cut in real quick. So it's time to get started, just get the next next layer down and then get on out. Oh, and yes, I'm barefoot again because that's the only way to do these things, man. All right, there you go. Sorry for the late delay, but there it is. That's 2 coats on the floor. My last one, evidently, my battery died and I couldn't get to it quick enough. So now I still see a couple spots in the floor that's gonna have to be dealt with, but for the most part, that is absolutely gorgeous. So yeah, just maybe 1, maybe 2 more coats, but that'll push it through. So. All right, guys, that's gonna be it for me today. I'm gonna go and take a shower now. I'm tired of being sticky. Talk to you later.